So do you have any thought about that, about the importance, about, what's come up when women have that space to speak freely without fear of any kind of master or worry or concern?
I think that there are obviously there's a lot of stereotypes that we're, sort of pushing against in the first place. Like that's sort of the first layer of, there are these expectations as a woman, one, and then as like a woman of color. And then there are a lot of stereotypes about being, an Asian woman, that you're submissive or that you're quiet or that you're docile or, and then within Vietnamese culture too, there's sort of this, there's a lot of self-sacrifice, and there's a lot of, there's a culture of the tireless, we revere the mother, but there's also like a certain, I guess, pressure of virtue that I feel like is placed on women, to be tireless and to be selfless. And so those are things, on one level, I think to push against, as in like, you can be all those things and by choice, but you can also be a lot of other things, and you can be complicated and thorny and ambitious, and also fail at some of the virtues. And there's a lot in that too. I feel like that's one layer. And then there's just, like for myself personally, I also think that there's a lot happening within sort of the experimental voice and the experimental work that women have been doing as artists, that is its own kind of politics, because it's creating structures and it's creating like ways of reading or ways of thinking and visualizing that are really important. And it's a more subtle layer of like, like activism or political work. Like it's like, I feel like those are really critical things. And that's where experimental work feels important to me, where, it helps us to perceive the world differently and maybe to respond differently, and to connect things differently. So those are some initial thoughts that I have. Maybe V wants to add on.
I do wish that more Vietnamese American women are given opportunities to take the national stage in very, very big ways. I feel the current narrative that we're experiencing are lopsided, where the voices being heard tend to be celebrated by specific male voices. Some of them are sexist voices, and retaining that level of sexism and advocating for them in a national arena, I think leads to future dysfunctional relationships between Vietnamese American writing on the national stage. And I think patriarchy and sexism are the primary opponents of such arena. And I don't know how did you change a system where you're not part of the system, where you're excluded from the system? How can you have a voice when that voice has been spoken for you and is spoken loudest, and say, well, you can still speak, but you will need to speak at a low volume, because if your volume is too loud, we will find a way to erase you. And I don't mean erase as in, like one can speak, but if one only has two other people to listen to, is that really a voice? Is that really vocality? Is that true representation of the Vietnamese American experiences for both binary and non-binary folks? I think if we were given the proper national stage, the narrative won't be so perverted. And I don't know how to change that. I've been trying by producing as many work as possible, but it's not helping, or it's not shifting, it's not transforming the narrative. So what else did I need to do? Like, I don't want to be one of those self-sacrificing Vietnamese women that break her back in order to get something accomplished. Can I stand tall, have my shoulders square? Can I sit and still have a voice without having to break my back and everyone's back while trying to have my voice heard?